Whoa. What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where I apologize for not streaming for... How long has it been? It's just been 1 week, right? Or has it been 2 weeks? Anyway, we talk about whatever topic I've come up with at the last minute, and this week is no exception. Hello to the people who are here so far. Thank you for like coming back and sticking with me, even though I don't show up as often. Life's crazy, man. Life's busy. You know, got the kids starting back to school. Lots of stuff happening at work. I think we probably got COVID again. So lots of things going on. Makes for some really interesting times, I have to tell you. Let me see if I can get the chat pulled up. I forgot to pull up the actual IRC on my screen here. Let me just pull up trusty old RC IRC. So I can see who's talking. You know, I would have been on time today. I swear. I would have been on time today, but I literally had to change a diaper 2 minutes before the stream started. So instead of being 3 minutes late, I'm 7 minutes late. What a time to be alive, says Cal. Yes, I agree with that. Why am I in the wrong chat? What's going on? Okay, here we are. Cool. So let's say hello to the folks who are here so far. Hello to Fade, Eric, Apurv, Peter, Cal, Auntie, Adi. You should tell me how to pronounce your name correctly, man. Niklaus, I see Niklaus there. Yes, I'm doing it. I'm finally doing it again. Alive finally says Ericy. Thank you, Ericy. Oh my goodness, I'm clipping like crazy, I think. Got to turn the volume down. Yes, finally got a live going again. Hey, Big Edie. Let me see. I need to pull up the stream on the other screen. The chat. Big Edie is here. Yes, Big Edie is here. Hey, Yabo. All right, let me pull over to the other machine here. Yes, I pronounced it correctly. Thank you, Apurv. I'm trying my best here, okay? I try my best, always. Let me get the YouTube chat, because I don't have that up. Hey, Dominic. All right, let me get the stream up here. There it is, right there. Cool. And hello to Dominic on the YouTube side, to Gregory, Appenzell, Carswell's Coat, and Gucci. Greetings from Germany. Nice to see you. Carswell's Coat says, great to see you back. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be back. I always have fun streaming. It's just, you know, things get in the way sometimes. That's okay. You know, that's life. What can we do about that? Which font? The one on the Artanis page? Yeah, that one's kind of wacky. That's okay, though. I mean, I guess it's meant to look futuristic or something. Is that the whole point? So, what's been going on? Big Edie says, the bullets next to the chat messages are new, right? Yeah, this is kind of like an in-progress thing I've been working on, and I haven't got back to it because I've been so busy with my job recently. I'm working on getting YouTube and Twitch chat pulled into the overlay directly through the Restream chat API. And the idea is that the green dot is for IRC, and there would be a red one for YouTube and a purple one for Twitch. So that would help you to distinguish between the messages coming from the various chat services, so that Ashraz doesn't have to go and do copy-paste job the whole time. Hey, Dave. Nice to see you. Yeah, so yeah, what's been going on, man? Like, I'm totally tuned out. I have no idea what's happening anymore. Like, I'm just totally, like, heads down, boxed into JavaScript land. And, you know, using a MacBook every day, which I don't like it, but I have to do it. But thankfully, I have my nice Happy Hacking Keyboard Studio to make it at least nice to type on, because otherwise I would be pissed, probably, if I had to use a Magic Keyboard the whole time. Nikolaus says, not to jump ahead too much, but really curious, if Artanis could be combined with Hoot Goblins for super clever distributed services, maybe Dave knows if this is viable. I don't know. I think Artanis is meant to be more just like a standard web development framework, but, you know, Hoot can always be hooked into things. Not sure. Let's see. Let me get the show notes started here, because I ain't got nothing. Projects, sites. There we go. I gotta remember my folder structure. Content, live streams. Come on now, Emacs. What was my last September stream? There we go. Let's copy and paste. Sounds like we should do a JavaScript stream. Nobody wants to see a JavaScript stream. I'm pretty sure about that. Nobody wants to see a JavaScript stream. Why do I have an ampersand? What is that? What is that called? An @ symbol? So I think that the call for proposals for Emacs Conf is over with now, so hopefully you got your stuff in there. September 26th, is that today? Super professional here, super professional, making you watch me start my show notes live on stream. Scheme web development with GNU Artanis, right? Is that what I called the stream today? I came up with that like at the very last minute, as usual. I had other ideas too, but this is the one that I went with because I was like, you know, I haven't looked at that yet, so might as well do it now. Let's see. A little copy and paste job there. Boom. What's the news? What's been happening? Is there anything new? Big Edie says, Auntie says, do you mean a JS vulnerability exploit stream? You mean just installing any package from NPM? Just to make your system vulnerable? Emacs 2025 getting close. Time flies. GNU Core Utils 9.8 was out recently. Yeah, I was looking today to see if Emacs 31 got released, but apparently it has not yet. Or at least it's not on the release log if it's out yet. I imagine it should be close. Like it should have been close like 2 or 3 months ago because they had cut a release candidate a while back, right? But that's the way it goes. You know, you never know what kind of last minute issues are going to show up, and I can sympathize. Dave says, Hoot definitely, but Goblins might be a bit more awkward. Artanis is a very Web 2.0 style framework. That's right. So, like, what else? What else is going on in the world? Oh, Dave says, the newest thing from Sprightly, we have a usable Goblins-based Shepherd. Wow. Okay, that's worth talking about. Let's take a look at that. I've been looking forward to the possible news on that front. So, sprightly.institute. About news. Shepherd Goblins update. Wow, that's a fancy animation. Looks like Christine's been busy. We're just going to watch that. That's better than the stream. Why is my screen zoomed in so much? Oh, there's a Geek System VM to do it. That's cool. Big Edie says, this will be the first version of Emacs I'm not scared of updating to since I'm almost totally vanilla now. Cool. You have to tell me what stuff you're using. So, news update on the combination of Shepherd, GNU Shepherd, well, I guess it's just the Shepherd now, and Sprightly Goblins. Shepherd is an init system and process manager initially built for GNU Herd and now used by geeks. It can run with either root or user privileges to launch daemons. Blah, 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 blah. Sprightly's been working to port the Shepherd to Goblins. And why would you want to do that? Mainly because, because Goblins is a distributed programming model. It would possibly allow you to have multiple machines that are running Shepherd, and you could distribute applications to run across them, but sort of have it be a coherent, basically deployment environment. So instead of just having like one machine where you have services running using Shepherd, you could have multiple machines and you could deploy a single application across multiple of them. So it sort of opens the door to more complex deployments using geeks, you know, with the same declarative deployment style and the benefits of the OCAPN protocol stuff behind Sprightly Goblins, which is pretty cool, which means it would be safer. Dave says that animation is actually old and we reuse it for the post. Well, you didn't have to tell me that because I would have just believed it was brand new because I've never seen it before. Or I've never paid attention. Dave says, see the end of the post for the future use cases Goblins plus Shepherd enabled. He says, I should probably stop riffing and just read the page. Just be a good little screen reader here. Let's see. As a quick refresher, the Shepherd is a great project to port Goblins because it is already built on the actor model. By switching to Goblins, we can bring the following benefits to the project. Streamline the code base. Reduce the likelihood of concurrency bugs. All right. Transform services and other actors into object capabilities for fine-grained management of privileges, which will eventually make it possible to unify the currently separate worlds of system shepherds and user shepherds. That's kind of cool. So you can basically have system level and user level services running or being managed by the same process effectively. That's cool. Yeah, Peter says, looking forward to having cluster orchestration with less layers. Yeah, that would be pretty interesting, actually. Enables Shepherd to use the object capability network to open the door for distributed networks of communicating Shepherd processes. Now we're riffing on CSP, communicating sequential processes. The whole concurrency paper, the old concurrency paper. Since our last post, we've done the following. Wrote Goblins versions of the core actors like the service controller, service registry, and process monitor. Added unit tests for all the core actors. Rewrote the public API as a compatibility layer on top of the new Goblins actor API. This API is private for now. Okay, cool. Means all the extant Shepherd functionality will soon be available in the Goblins port. So basically, they're just rewriting everything to use Goblins as the core, right? That's really sort of what I'm reading here, which is good. I mean, it's a good foundation. You have everything refactored onto a new programming model that effectively does the same thing, but opens the door to distributed management of processes. And Dave says that they're looking for geeks hackers to make that happen. So if you're interested, you want to work on some scheme code that uses Goblins, then you should consider contributing to this effort because it would result in some pretty interesting things. Let's see. Currently working out the remaining sneaky, tricky, subtle bugs in order to have a full one-to-one port that passes the existing test suite. Getting close. Felt it was time to share the update. Yeah, it's good because it's been a little while since we heard about it. So I'm glad to hear something about it. Let's see. I don't want to read all this. Let's see. Shepherd actors are implemented as an event loop running in a fiber, a lightweight thread that send messages to each other over channels. In contrast, Goblins is also built on fibers, but mostly hides us behind an abstraction barrier rather than each actor managing his own event loop. Many Goblins actors share an event loop known as a VAT. And if you remember back from some of the streams that we were working on, working on this, we were using Goblins in a few streams for, I think, a game project and also just kind of playing around with it. And the VAT was sort of like the core of the event loop between the various actors. So fibers is kind of an implementation detail under the covers, and that's the way that it achieves the in-application concurrency for having actors talk to each other within the application. So that's kind of the foundation. But the actual programming model is not using fibers. It's just using VATs whenever you use Goblins. Jump to the demos. Yes. Yeah, okay. That's a lot of inside baseball here. A lot of scheme implementation details I see. All right, demo time. So does it work? In addition to using Shepherd for the init system, Geeks provides helpful facilities for running user-level Shepherd daemons through the home Shepherd service type in Geeks Home. Let's see. We use this functionality to swap in our Goblin Shepherd and manage an Emacs background daemon with it. There's an actual session running in the context of Geeks Home container. So we're running Geeks Home container, Home Shepherd. Let's see. I'm a little stunned by these messages because they're all in French here. All right. Herd status Emacs. What am I seeing that's any different here? I mean, I guess the point is that it's working. I can't tell that it's using Goblins. But maybe that's the point. As simple as this demo is, it demonstrates that the Goblin Shepherd can already handle its basic job despite the work left to achieve parity with mainline. Cool. There is a repo, sprightly/shepherd on Codeberg. Yeah, the point is nothing is different. It's all working. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, it's good to be able to show that the core assumptions have not been broken by this change. When will this be shipping in a Geeks distribution near me? When can I use Goblins to boot my operating system? Not quite ready for prime time yet. I'm sure somebody's going to try to do it, though. Want to ensure that we reliably pass Shepard's existing test suite full of shell-based tests. Plenty of code to clean up. Beyond a direct port. Yeah, I think this is going to be the hard part. Basically trying to make system and user level services run from the same PID1 Shepherd. But it's nice because then you wouldn't have this, you wouldn't necessarily have the separation of system and home services anymore. Maybe you wouldn't even need to have the complication of Geeks Home. I mean, you would have to have Geeks Home to install things in the user's profile, but for service management, maybe not. The end of the post goes in future directions. Yep. As a first step in this direction, we've added a prerequisite component to Goblins, a Unix domain socket net layer for OCAPN. Yeah, definitely you would need that. All right, so fleet orchestration. Moving on from Shepherd to on a single machine, an OCAPN-enabled Shepherd will allow for orchestration of entire server fleets. To demonstrate, let's walk through an example scenario. You have a DevOps engineer responsible for web servers. Let's see. We have 3 Goblin VATs. Set up some loggers. Okay. Servers A and B have an identical configuration with a web service that depends on the networking service. Okay, cool. So the difference here is that we're spawning this as a Goblins actor. Service registry, Shepherd, A registry, and where's Shepherd coming from? We haven't seen that yet. First requires references to the web service actors on each machine. Let's see, both have the same name, but fear not. Carol can assign locally meaningful names to these remote servers in her local Shepherd. What, just using variables? Okay, we're extending methods on the service. Exported services are actually proxy objects that you can think of like micro-herd clients that only control a single service. Shepherd is an actor that is in Shepherd itself. Yeah. Okay, so basically this code is running in Shepherd and the Shepherd actor is already in the environment that is available to the code that's being executed. To conveniently orchestrate all the remote web server services with a single command, Carol binds them together with her own local web server fleet service that depends on both web server A and web server B. All right, so, okay, I see. Web server A, web server B. And we are receiving messages. Is that what's happening here? Register. Okay, we're calling the register method on C Shepherd to register web server A, B, and fleet. And then we're sending a message to start the web server fleet. Okay, got it. So we're basically telling Shepherd to start that service. So the underlying programming model looks a lot different now, just because it's all based on Goblins, effectively. Now all Carol has to do is run herd start web server fleet, which we simulate above in the start method call. Cool. All right. And that's C web server fleet right here, right? Whoops. Got it. So you're defining the service named web server fleet. That's actually being defined as C web server fleet here. Carol is registering her local Shepherd services that orchestrate servers A and B, says Dave. Yeah. Similar to the logs from all 3 machines, the event log would look something like this. It's got all the networking services starting, and then web servers, and then the fleet itself being started. But that's happening across multiple machines. So that would be pretty cool, actually. Geeks deployment over OCAPN. Final idea is to share a new Geeks feature, a Geeks deploy agent. Capability safe take on the modern DevOps practice of deploying through dedicated agents instead of generic SSH. There will be a Geeks deploy shepherd service that runs on the target machine with a special deploy action to start the deployment process. This workstation that is invoked in Geeks deploy will receive a capability to that service and associate with a, hello to NightHK and Nakatani. Associated with a Geeks machine declaration that might look something like this. Environment OCAPN environment type. That's cool. Oh, okay, sturdy ref. Basically, it's like a URL looking thing that would allow you to resolve that agent basically from somewhere else. All right. Any volunteers interested in building this? That would be pretty cool. The implementing a Geeks deploy backend seems like a decent amount of work, but it would be fun. If you want some really meaty scheme problems to work on, go try to implement anything non-trivial in the Geeks code base. Yes, I know your real name, which is definitely NightHK. Obviously. I'm watching you, Bergheim. Okay, so wrapping up, porting Shepherd to Goblins has been a long time coming, but we're starting to see encouraging results. If you'd like to discuss this blog post, help us make some of the ideas described a reality, or talk about anything else Sprightly related, consider joining the community forum, which is at community.sprightly.institute. Check it out. Definitely think about contributing if you want to see some cool stuff happening in Shepherd and Goblins land in the future. Let's see, an update on port of Shepherd to Sprightly Goblins. Excellent. Thanks, Dave, for pointing that out. Because otherwise I would have nothing to talk about. And also it's exciting. I mean, come on. Obviously it's exciting. Let's see. They had a talk at FOSM 22. 22? Who had? All right, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. The Geeks VM screenshot. Ah, okay. Goblins. What? Let me get back to the right machine. Here we are. Wait, I'm trying to copy and paste stuff that I can't copy and paste because I'm using the same keyboard across multiple machines. Community.sprightly.institute. Scroll right here. Let's see. Okay, so it's basically Goblins Shepherd running in PID 1, and it validates that you could have a desktop environment with that. It's cool. Very nice. So it proves that it works. That's all that really matters, right? Once you have the first demo working, that means that it's finished. Everything's finished, and you can move on with your life, right? Oh, video from FOSM 22. Got it. Just to show that we can run it in PID 1 and things don't blow up. Yeah, that's important, though. Yeah, move on and focus on bugs. That's what happens. When the fun part is over, then you just got to deal with all the bugs. Or at least in my case, I get the first thing working, and then there's like 100 features that need to be implemented. Then I get to deal with all the bugs. And that's the part where I just sort of like sleep or drink a lot of coffee. That's right. The 80-20 rule, just the other 80 to do. Yeah, that's right. That's how it is. I get the first 20% done, and then I just whine for the rest of the 80% that needs to be finished. Okay. So Dave says we're definitely in the other 80% right now. Getting the final test passing as a slog. That should be pretty difficult, I think. All right, so today, randomly, I decided that I want to talk about GNU Artanis because I've been looking at it for a while, but I haven't actually ever tried it. I don't know how far we'll get into trying it today. We will try to try it, which sounds like I'm, having trouble committing to anything, which is, the usual case here. I can't really say that anything real is going to happen by the end, but we're going to try to get GNU Artanis working. Now, I will say that my Geeks setup on this machine is a little bit behind. I think the current version of Artanis is 1.3.0, but I'm using 1.2.2, or I will be whenever I install it, I think. So let's not worry too much if things don't work because maybe they're fixed in 1.3, but I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, so we'll have to see. But the point is that Artanis is kind of like, it's a web framework in the vein of Django for Python or Ruby on Rails for Ruby or other web frameworks that you typically see in dynamic programming languages. The idea is to make it really easy to set up a web application that has a database, controllers for handling requests at various different route paths in your application, and other things you need like session management, maybe authentication, other things of that nature. I don't know how many of those things that Artanis itself takes care of, but I'm pretty sure it would be taking care of the basic parts. The other thing that's interesting is that it is possible to do REPL-based development with GNU Artanis, and we'll take a look at the manual in a moment and see how one might go about that. But this does give us the ability to have a scheme-based web application development framework that should feel familiar if you've used frameworks in other languages. Or at least that's what I assume to be the case because I have not tried it yet. So we're going to find out pretty soon. Peter says, no traditional Geek stream pull. I've got enough things going on at the same time that I can't risk that today. I almost did, but I didn't do it in the end. And the stream started 7 minutes after the time that it's supposed to start, which is good. That's an improvement, right? Big Edie says, we should do a Geeks pull live. The only thing I would do is use Geeks Time Machine, but the problem is I can't easily make the profile for the Time Machine pull work very easily with Geyser and Emacs if I want to do REPL-based development. I mean, I suppose I could. I could connect to it from... I probably could do it. Let's not waste time on that. I mean, maybe later. Maybe later I'll do it. Don't nerd snipe me, okay? Don't do that to me, please. Adi says, do you have a stream host right now? No audio issues at the beginning of the stream? I didn't have any issues today, but don't say that because then I will have issues. Yeah, I'm using Restream, as I've always been. A stream host now. So, let's see. Let's get started. Sailing to Dev Null. Why is it the first line? Is this a poem? Sailing to Dev Null? That is no future for mediocre coder. The hacker is one other's arm. Codes in the editors. Those dying generations at their song. I'm confused. But okay. GNU Artanis is the first product-level modern web framework of the Scheme programming language. Is it really? Maybe. It is designed and maintained to be robust, fast, and easy to use for professional web development. It was certified as Awesome Project in the 2013 Lisp in Summer projects. 2013 literally feels like 100 years ago. So I don't really know, like, does anything in 2013 matter anymore? Like, the world is, like, gone through... a number of revisions since 2013. So, like, yeah, it's like 2 centuries ago. Like, I don't think that... I try to think back to what was happening in 2013. And I'm like, I don't even know who I was anymore in 2013. I mean, I was probably using Emacs, but at the same time, like, that's a long damn time ago in the scheme of things. Hey, Judy. Big Edie says 2013 feels like yesterday. I don't know. Judy says F#. Actually, I was doing some programming at F# in 2013. How'd you know that? All right. Certified as an Awesome Project 2013 Lisp Summer Project. Eric says, AI to the rescue. The poem you share seems to be a parody or a pastiche of the famous poem Sailing to Byzantium. Okay, that makes sense. Express was introduced in 2010. Was it? Express for Node.js? Well, I guess Node.js came out around then, right? Because I started using Node.js. What was it? Probably 2012 or 2013. Interesting. When did Node.js come out? Node.js Wikipedia. (2009) initial release. Okay. That's a long time ago. But it doesn't feel that long, does it? I guess maybe it feels like it's been around longer than that, let's say. But it is quite a while. Would you stop posting links to my old F# videos? Not because I'm embarrassed about them, just because I look like a completely different person then. You're going to show people that I'm old now. Anyway. All right, so usage. So we just get right into it. First of all, I have to install it before I can use it. So maybe I should be told how to install it so that I can run this nice scheme code that I see. But maybe that's okay. It's just marketing, right? We're pulling in the Artanis module, okay? Init server. We're setting up a route. I like the route syntax because it's very simple. There must be a global route table that this gets added to because this is really simple looking. And we're not passing in any kind of route object for this to be registered into. So we got a little bit of hand wavy stuff, but that's pretty common for it's pretty common for web frameworks to have kind of a simplified interface for setting everything up. I mean, Express itself is a little bit more wiring than this, but I mean, it's not much. Express looks pretty simple. Let's just say Express.js. Well, Express is not a good comparison because it's not a full framework. It's just like a web library, okay? So app.get on the root route, and we respond with hello world, app.listen. Yeah, we just have, this is the way that I would sort of expect it to be. You have an object that you create on purpose, and then you add routes to it, and then you tell it to listen. And in the Artanis world, apparently you don't have an object you're adding things to. You're just sort of like firing off requests for routes to be handled into the ether. But that's okay. I don't have a real big problem with that. And for REPL-based development, it's actually probably easier to deal with. So I'll stop talking now. All right, so then you run it on port 8080. That's all good. Okay, cool. So features. Feature number 1 is it has GPL. It's a feature, isn't it? Does that make the web page load faster? I'm sorry, Nalagan Root. I'm not making fun of Artanis. I'm just being punchy because I haven't done this in a while. I got to get, the process back. I got to get my muscle memory working again on how to actually run a stream. So I just got to start, running my mouth a little bit. Very lightweight, easy to hack on and learn for newbies. Support for JSON, CSV, XML, XML. Cool. Support for WebSockets. Probably because Dave Thompson wrote Guile WebSockets. Let's see. Internationalization support, complete web server implementation, including an error page handler, high concurrent async non-blocking server core based on delimited continuations. Is it based on fibers or are they doing their own delimited continuations thing? Supported databases are MySQL, SQLite, Postgres. Nice and easy web cache control, efficient HTML template parsing, efficient static file downloading, updating, uploading. Okay. Oh, like serving static files and also having them be uploadable to the server. Cool. I mean, that's necessary. So we got a link to the manual page or the manual website, right? Dave says, I don't think Artanis uses Guile WebSocket, but I could be wrong. That would be weird if they did their own thing, but I guess it's not too complicated to make a WebSocket implementation. All right. What am I doing? I'm trying to go to opening my Geeks packages listing. I didn't ask for Magit. What's going on here? Geeks package. Oh, sorry. List package by name. There we are. Now we gotta wait for the REPL to start. Efficient HTML template parsing. So a macro, I'll bet they actually have like a template file system thing. Artanis. What are the dependencies? Yeah, they don't have Guile WebSocket in here. So they must have written their own stuff. It's a soft G. Magit. It's Magit, like magic, according to the website. Is it not? I don't know which one you're telling me it is. Okay. Let me pull the... All right, homepage. Manual. Like GIF? Magit, GIF? You're trying to get me in trouble, aren't you? By saying GIF. Because I do say it GIF. So, sue me. All right. I actually want to go to this. So they have a colorful HTML5 page. Nice to read. Fine. We'll use that because I'm tired of being blinded by the white background. It's pronounced like magic officially. Exactly, Dave. This is why I say it like that. I mean, I'm saying that like that for Big Edie to understand. The web page says it's Magit. And it has a magic hat. But it's like GIF in that most people don't use the official pronunciation. Yeah, GIF, I guess, because it's graphics interchange format. So it makes sense that it would be GIF. But, you know, I'm still going to say it wrong. Because there are some things I don't care that I say wrong. I would rather say people's names correctly, but I don't care if I say GIF wrong. No, I know it's not a peanut butter. Okay. Introduction. Click, please. Thank you. All right, we're not reading all this. Let's just get started. First of all, we need to have a place to try this out. So let me go to... Let me see if I can remember how to do it. Actually, do I need to do that? Yeah, maybe. Specifications to manifest. List. Artanis. Artanis. Is that right? Am I doing that right? Do you remember? All right. Geek shell -m manifest.scm Artanis. I think that works, doesn't it? Maybe it doesn't. About to find out. So in the meantime, while that's downloading stuff, I never fixed the substitutes on this machine either, I don't think. Geeks install Artanis. All the other extra stuff. Configuration files required when Artanis is run for the first time. It's required. Art. Yes, you're right. It is art, actually. I've seen that before. God bless hacking. All right, at least we got it running. It's not a Geeks pull, but it'll do. Well, yeah. I mean, we don't want to run a Geeks pull on that. I could do a Geeks time machine, but let's not play with that. Okay, is a monolithic framework written in Guile Scheme. Commands: API, generate web API automatically, say RESTful, create a new Artanis project. Oh, I probably should have done that, huh? Draw, generate component automatically, say MVC draw. Okay. Help, migrate DB migration tools. That would be pretty useful. Show the version info, work, run the server and make the site app work. Make it work. Okay. Cool, sounds good. So I should probably do art create then. I might need to be in a vterm for that. So let's try this. Because it might prompt me to do some things. So geek shell -m manifest.scm. I probably don't need to do this whole song and dance. I could probably just say geek shell Artanis, huh? What did it tell me? Oh, I have to actually give it a name? Okay. Fooble. Okay, so it created something here. Created some files. Cool, great. We got the Fooble project here. Entry. This is an Artanis entry file. Don't remove it. All right. And it does not have a thing at the top of the file to make Emacs recognize this as a scheme file, which is kind of interesting. Use modules Artanis and utils. Put modules you want to be imported here only for this file, not controller's views. Why does this like populate the initial environment or something? Init server statics. I guess with all the possible file types it supports. Let me see. I see some things happen in chat. I haven't been paying attention on the other side. Let's see. Hello to Zeke Eternal Guilt. Scheme for web dev? Yes. Greg says, I was in school. What, 2013? Yeah, I wasn't. Hey, Alejandro. Invaz Alta on Twitch says, in my opinion, web dev works best when you generate the JavaScript from a real programming language like Elm, Ruby, or Python. Okay. Peter says, this gives me Rails vibes. It's supposed to. I think it's probably very inspired by Rails. All right. So back here, README. Nothing in the README. Tests. Functional tests. Unit tests. Great. Sys. Okay. Kind of checking out what's in the folders here. Just basically a folder structure with a bunch of get keep files so that the folders get checked in. Nothing. There's literally nothing in here except for the cont folder and yeah, there's nothing here except for the stuff that's in the cont folder. Artanis.conf. Seems to be a normal configuration file. Okay, so let's go back here. Plugins.scm. Uncomment following allows to enable plugins. Okay. Dave says it's directly inspired from Sinatra, which is a mini Ruby web framework. So yes, Rails vibes indeed. Yeah. I think Dave had to live with Rails for a while at one of his previous jobs, if I remember correctly. All right. So there's pretty much nothing in this folder structure except for the basics. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, obviously, because the manual has not told me to create a project yet. So we'll see how we can match these things up. Configuration file is required using minimum mode. All code are in a script file without application directory. The configuration file must be in etc. Artanis, artanis.conf, which sounds like you can just have a normal Guile script to set up a whole website. Ha. Dave says Artanis is Sinatra backwards. Not sure if that has been said yet. I didn't know that, but that's actually kind of a cool backwards spelling. Like the actual word that comes out of making Sinatra backwards sounds good. I wouldn't have guessed it. So the first thing we get into is configuration. I kind of feel like we're jumping the gun a bit, talking about configuration first, because what are we configuring even? Like, what is the context we have for knowing that we need to configure something? A backward nym? Yes. But I like the fact that it seems simple. In the code, you can use conf set to set configuration values. Is any part of it called knarf as well? Why? To get the current configuration, get the current host name. Okay, fine. Hello world, use a Guile REPL and verify GNU Artanis installation. Frank, okay. See, I'm not really following things today, apparently. I've had a fair amount of coffee, but probably not enough to make my brain really pick up on patterns. My pattern recognizer is shut down for the day. So use Guile REPL and verify Artanis installation. If you're already familiar with Guile, you may skip this section. Well, what? Hold on. If you're already familiar with Guile, you can skip this section. How did I jump all the way down here? If you're already familiar with Guile, you can skip this section. Maybe I don't want to skip it. So here in the console, we can do Guile. Use Artanis. What did they say? Artanis. No code for module. That's weird. Should it not be in there? Sounds like a dwarven bard in D&D. It does sound like that, Yabo. I agree. Knarf Artanis. Narf Artanis. The K is silent. Somebody's going to end up using that name. Okay. I'm surprised it's not getting added to the load path. Load path is not being affected at all. Do I need to use -D? That probably won't work either, though. Alejandro says the load path. Yeah, definitely it is a load path, excuse me, load path issue. I don't know why Shell's not putting it in there. We'll see in a minute, though. Either way, maybe using the manifest file is better for this, but same thing. Unless the environment variable is getting expanded outside of the shell. Artanis. Nope. That's really weird. LS, wait, hold on. LS, is it Geeks environment? Yeah. So share. Oh, come on. I hate it when that happens. Excuse me. Oh, you're right, Apurv. You need to have Guile in the Geek Shell command as well. Yeah, it's like Emacs with Emacs packages. You have to actually have the root thing in there. Damn it. Geek Shell, Guile, Artanis, Echo, Guile, load path. That's the only way to get it to invoke the load path creation. Where is Shell? I thought I was going to prompt me to do things, but apparently it didn't. Okay, it's still not actually giving me the load path correctly, but let's just skip that for a minute and see if running Guile here will let me to... Okay, that worked. So, cool. Good. Thank you to Apurv. You're correct. So, now that we have Artanis loaded up in the REPL, we can play around with it just for a moment and see what it does. Or we could even do the Guile C blah 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 here that it tells us to do. Assuming there's a file named index.html in the current path, you can try localhost 3000. All right, cool. I wonder if the reason why that works is because Guile itself has a wrapper script generated that has the updated load path baked into it, and it's not in the environment itself. Go back. We're about to find out now. So, are we in the shell still? No, but cat which relink Guile. I'm sorry. What just happened? You didn't like the way I did that, huh? Let's do that inside the shell. Which? I'm sorry? Did I do that wrong? I swear to God, this works, doesn't it? There we go. No, what? Okay, I'm confused now. Okay, whatever. Which Guile? Okay, cool. Cat, which Guile? Why am I doing this? I don't know. Oh, this is not even a script. That's a binary file. So it's not a wrapper? Interesting. Okay. Oh, I did it backwards. Anyway, what we see there is that there's not a wrapper script. So anyway, the solution was you got to make sure that Guile is in the same profile as the Artanis package for it to work in the REPL. Okay. Good. We're on the same page now. Type this in the Guile REPL. Let's go back and try to do that then. Let's load it up. Am I still in the thing? There we go. Okay, cool. So we're back in the REPL. It tells me use Artanis. Got it now. Init server, which I'm guessing it runs a server in the background. Fatal error. Do you have a configuration file? Of course I don't. Why doesn't it just take some defaults? Because it defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing here. You can't have a nice path. I know it tells me. It tells me in the manual. Maybe that's why it starts with the configuration thing first, that you need the configuration file for it to work. But I don't have one because this is Geeks, and it's not installing it into my system profile. It's not putting in the etc. folder. And even if I did install the package and it put it in the etc. folder, I couldn't edit it there. Anyway, I'm complaining again. If you're using the application directory, the configuration file conf/artanis.conf will be generated automatically for you, which we do have. We have that, but it hasn't told me yet how to load it. I wonder if init server has a parameter for statics, cache statics exclude. Okay, so that's not anything there for the configuration. I wonder, do you have, oh, init config. Whoops. Where is init config? Probably in use. Okay, init config. Yeah, same thing. It doesn't let me pass a parameter in. Let's skip ahead a little bit and see if we can figure out how to run this with the application we created. Art create. Maybe the reason why they call it art draw is because the command is art, so it makes sense to call it draw. Let's see. Have this command to create the application directory first. Art draw will generate the specified components. What if I just want to like load up the application in a REPL? Let's go to the top. Boom. REPL. Development REPL. Guile REPL. Oh. It's a Geeks config. Using Artanis in combination with Geeks. Okay. And we're talking about Andrew Turpin's Ari and Ari's as a REPL. That's cool. But still, it didn't tell us how to run the application. As a REPL. How do you run the app? Artwork. Listening port. Nothing for REPL here. Start the server when running a project directory. Okay, fine. Artwork refresh to recompile web app code each time you upgrade GNU Artanis. What does that mean? Django says, I don't like the cutesy use of kind of related words for CLI tools. Homebrew and it's pouring in formulas and casks. Yeah, I know. Like it kind of breaks your assumptions about what the name of something is supposed to be. Trying to think how we can get this working. Obviously, we can just run it. But that defeats the purpose. We want to be able to use a REPL. Monitoring files for updates, I guess. reproducibly run your project with artwork-c. Yeah, there's like two completely different ways to run this thing, and one of them is not very amenable to use with geeks because there's no etc/artanis/artanis.conf file. Unless you, maybe if you install it in your system profile, but that, I'm not about to do that. Alejandro says, have you tried Aris for Guile development? Not recently, a while back. Alejandro says, my suspicion is it uses some kind of environment variables. You could be right, actually, but does it say anything about environment variables? No, those are some pretty obvious things, though, like for web frameworks to override things like configuration file paths, etc. That would be a nice thing to have, is to have an environment variable for overriding the Artanis conf file path. That would solve this problem, at least in the short term. Why does it take so long to navigate to the anchor? Give me a break. So weird. Okay, so artwork. Wait, hold on. No entry. Yeah, I'm not in there. CD Fooble. All right, so let's see. It started the server. We can go to 127.0.0.1 No index HTML, but it works. Cool, great. Abnormal request. Trying to see if it says anything about like having a REPL available, but it doesn't seem to at all. So if I were to do geyser connect localhost, yep, no port open. So basically, if you want to use artwork, you're not doing any REPL-based development. But maybe that makes sense. Because in case I'm not finding config because of the wrong working dir. Do you think it would work, though? I don't think it would work. Let's see. Fare you well, your server is cold. All right. We're very poetic with a lot of the stuff I see. Nothing wrong with that. Just, you know, commenting on the obvious. Yeah, it doesn't pick up the one from the local file path, even if it's there. All right. So I think the point is to use this in the standard web framework way anyway. So let's just skip the whole REPL idea and move on to using it in the way that probably you're supposed to. There we go. GNU Artanis basics. Web application structure. There's an app folder with controllers, models, protocols, and views. Do we have all that same thing? Let's see. App. Yep, we have the same folder path. Conf, DB, entry, a lot of other stuff. PRV, I guess private and public. And that pub is probably just static files that are being served. Sys. I guess pages are like static pages. Who knows? Lib is where you put your own modules for the app, and the third-party modules can be put into it. The load path will be added automatically when the core service starts. Log is a expected place to put logs. However, it's not actually used yet. PRV is a place to put your private stuff, like API token or password in text. It should never be added to Git. Okay. how to run a site with GNU Artanis. Simplest way to run a site. Yeah, if you're not using the command line. Better to use a init server to init GNU Artanis. But it doesn't say a way to do it without configuration. So that's that. Running the server. Art command line. Okay, so we create the app. Then, let's see. Please see MVC to learn more about how to use these components. We'll skip ahead to that in a moment. APIs generate a RESTful API skeleton. RESTful API section for details. My database migrations. All right. URL remapping. So let's jump ahead to MVC, because that's sort of the core thing that you would use the most. MVC is Model View Controller, which is basically an architectural pattern for implementing user interfaces, divides a given software application into 3 interconnected parts so as to separate internal representations of information from the ways that information is presented to or accepted from the user. Let's make a controller named article. Let's just follow what the instructions say so that we get the right thing. Art, draw, controller, article, show, edit. My guess is that first is the type of thing you're creating. The next is the name of the thing. And then the remaining things are the methods that are supported for it. So show and edit. This kind of reminds me of Ruby on Rails, how it does its scaffolding. So I'm just going to copy and paste because I'm a loser. And I'm going to get out of vterm because what I want is to have, reasonable copy and paste. So we're in Fuble right now. Is there a Git folder here? No, obviously not. So let's run shell. And in shell, is this going to work? Well, let's see. Boom. Okay, so that's good. So it created the controller. So if we go to app/controllers, we see article, and it basically just code gen this stuff for us. This is not using SXML. This is just templating based on HTML strings, apparently. Do not remove this line. Okay. No need to yell at me. I wasn't even thinking about it. So it generates both a controller and a view for an article. These 3 files are generated. It does have in the views folder, it has templates. So if we go check out app, views, article, show. Interesting though that it has a string. Uncomment this line if you want to render view from template. Well, I do want to do that. Why would you just give me this by default? Okay. Peter says, actually, MVC is just a slice of the hexagon architecture. What is the hexagon architecture? That sounds like one of those, culty programming methodologies. Like the, what's it called? 12-factor, what's it called? 12-factor app. The 12-factor app sounds like a diet program. So let's see. Back to the thing here. Based on this, controller article will have 2 methods mapped to the URL rules, show and edit. As part of the view component, HTML template is generated for each method. Excuse me. For the controller component, you get a show method handler as Invaz Alta says hexagon is ports and adapters. That sounds fancy. Article define show. Is that what we saw? Yeah, article define show. We've got some macros in here, it seems. And this is not indented correctly. I know. I actually have looked at the 12-factor site a bunch of times, and it's cool. I'm just, making jokes. I'm going to upset all the 12 factors enthusiasts now. It's a cool website. I mean, look at it. It's nice. I'm jealous that I didn't write that, okay? That's why. That's why I'm talking shit, is because I'm jealous that I didn't write that. I'm not really. Anyway. So, of course, you're free to use or not use these templates. If you want to, the whole point is kind of to like use them though, right? You generate them so they can be used. There are many other snake oil frameworks in the 2000s. Oh, is it still going on, dude? Like, there's a new one in the JavaScript land every day. 12 factors is great advice. I know. Okay. Free to use or not use these templates. So look, one of the points of having a web framework is so that someone else's opinion for how you should write a web application is enforced upon you, at least in the default case, so that it's easier for you to get started writing an application. So I don't want choice to start with. I want you to tell me what to do and then allow me to make my own choices if I don't want the default. But maybe it's better just to make me use a template to start with, because that might be what a person would want to do to start with. Gal says the first factor of 12 factors is admitting you've got a problem. I think we probably need something like that for system crafting. Is the first step of system crafting is to admit that you have a problem, which is you're bored and you need to rewrite your configuration for the 15th time. The views template generated by MVC will defaultly announce free.js. Reason as well as this explained is optional. You may remove it with your free will, but I put it there and I hope that you can support free software with us. Okay. Dave says convention over configuration, as they say in Rails land. Yeah, I think that there's some value to that idea. But for me, I'd rather just like give me a good library and let me write it myself how I want to. Anyway, Edge Crusher says, hey y'all, almost forgot the stream. Yeah, me too. I almost forgot to do the stream. Edge Crusher used 12-factor app methodology at his old job. That's cool. All right. Layouts and rendering in GNU Artanis. Models contains operations of the database, usually connected to the name, same named controller. In this case, would be article. However, in practice, I think a pass over this would be useful to fix some of the grammatical issues. May create multiple models for one controller. Hence, GNU Artanis creates model outside controller rather than auto-generate a model when creating controller. Okay, so what it's saying is it does not create a model for you for the controller type by default, because the assumption is you might want to do something different, which kind of makes sense. I mean, there are many cases where you don't have a one-to-one mapping between the controller and the model type, but I think fairly commonly you would. Art draw model user. Well, I'm going to do one for article because I've got articles now, right? So art draw model article. How much time we got? Okay, we got a little bit of time. Okay, so we created our article. No. Let me create a Git repo here. Git init, just so that the project commands work. So now, article.scm models. Okay, so import Artanis MVC model, create Artanis model. Now, how do we define the properties of the model? Define the table in model. In this example, we create a table like this. For model definition syntax, we have, all right, cool. Copying and pasting. Just like our forebears. Instead of using AI, we just copy and paste. Create Artanis model. This is going to be article, depths list. We don't have any dependencies yet. Auto primary key. Name. Well, let's just say title. Author. Content. I don't know. How much space do you need for an article? All right. Great. If you have definition, you've imported any controller when booting Artanis with artwork, then the defined table will be created automatically. Don't worry, it will be created only once. So apparently it knows that you have not created that yet, and it can run a migration, I guess. Artwork. Did it say that it did anything? Doesn't look like it. But what if I go to articles? Are we getting 404s? Are we getting anything here? What's going on? Yikes, that looks huge. Give me the network display. Run a systems check. I just got triggered with a hacker's quote. Let's see. 404. Yeah, 404 with nothing. So you can't really tell what's happening until you look at the actual network log. Got it. And that's 404. Everything's 404. So what's the controller doing? Article. Article. Show. Edit. I guess there needs to be a list. How do you get a list? Since tables will be auto-created when booting the server core, MVC doesn't know the dependency chain. Fine, fine, fine. Model API. Okay, that's fine. I don't really care too much about that right now. Model mapping. Article, depth user ID, auto, author ID. All right, cool. That makes sense. So we're doing a little blog thing here. There will be a closure named article in this module that could be exported. The $ is auto added to the name of the table. Call it model mapping so you control this table easily. Okay, so it allows you to do some commands on it for like listing things. Table get, table set. Existence. Create. Not recommended to use it directly. Okay, fine. So I still don't know how I'm supposed to make a creation page for an article. Query parameters. I guess we're getting there. Query string from post. I don't know. I kind of feel like the path I'm being taken through in the manual is not leading me to understanding how I'm supposed to use this. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. If I have to keep jumping around in what amounts to a tutorial to find information, then I might not succeed. Cool, you can have SXML templates. That's nice. SXML is to scheme as JSON is to ECMAScript, so-called JavaScript. Maybe this explains it clearer. Not really. SXML is an alternative syntax for writing XML data using the form of S expression. That's, to me, a better explanation. The other one, I see what they're trying to accomplish by saying that, but I think that you're applying more assumptions to what the person already knows by saying this than you do the first line. One benefit of SXML is that it takes advantage of the quasi-quote and scheme. Please search the internet, scheme, quasi-quote for more details. I would just say it makes scheme expressions templatable. Database, DB init hooks. Okay. So, provide a way to do complicated modification of tables in a database by GNU Artanis. All right. the so-called JavaScript, if you will. Involves Alta says the manual overlooks a premise of tech docs. There are 4 scenarios: explain, describe, reference, and procedures. Yeah, there's different types of documentation. Definitely a tutorial needs to be written in a completely different way than reference docs. Yeah, it tries to do everything at once. I agree. Like, if you try to mix everything together, then it just makes it really confusing to follow. I feel the same way about the Guile manual sometimes, too, because the way that that's organized is really weird, in my opinion. And I've had a lot of trouble finding things there. Probably with these GNU style manuals, there should be a separate manual that's like the tutorial manual compared to the reference manual. I don't know if any project does that well. So a little bit of shade thrown on ORM here, apparently. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping, which is a popular approach to handle relational DBs nowadays, especially for object-oriented programming. It's possible to implement ORM in GNU using, in Artanis with GUPS in Guile. However, functional programming fans realize that they don't have to use OOP if they can use functional programming features reasonably. Here's no ways to solve ORM-related problems. Give up ORM. Yes, solve the problem by getting rid of the problem entirely. Sure, but what do you replace it with? Give up relational storage model. Don't use a relational DB. Use another DB style such as NoSQL. Well, yeah, you can't do that with Artanis. I guess we're eliminating possible solutions that don't work with Artanis here. Manual mapping. Write SQL code directly. Limited ORM. Limiting the utility of ORM. Basically, GNU Artanis has no ORM yet. Okay, fine. I don't really care about that. Peter says it's pretty hard to throw too much shade on ORMs. Well, I don't know. Like, I'm not really a fan. For simple data models, ORMs are fine, but when they start to get more complicated, then it gets messy. Especially when people are just editing the class definitions that get turned into database tables and they don't really know what they're doing, and it causes trouble. SQL is right. SQL and S expressions. Yeah, for complicated data models, they are even worse. Yes, that is what Peter said. It's pretty hard to throw too much shade on RMs, basically saying they suck. Yeah, I agree. For complicated data models, they are even worse, for sure. So writing SQL and S expressions, I mean, this should be a library by itself, potentially. FPRM, functional programming relational mapping, a new word that I invented, not new concept. It's stateless, okay? All right. I feel like I'm just getting lost. Soam says you don't need database if you just serialize and deserialize scheme expressions. Well, that is an option, but you might as well just be serializing and deserializing to a text file or a CSV file, because you still have to do a lot of work yourself and it's not performant at all, you know? And there's no way to do queries. So yeah, it's not great to do that. For simple applications, you could definitely serialize and deserialize an S expression to a file, but not for a real application. I don't really want to read all this. Sessions. Okay, let's just take a look at that real quick. You can use session mode to define a URL rule handler. Post auth session mode. Okay. T or spawn. Excuse me. To spawn a new session, the name of the SID is SID by default. Okay. Spawn SID session ID. Okay. Specify the name of the session ID to spawn. Spawn SID proc. Specify the name of the session ID and a proc to define your own session spawner. What? Peter says an ORM is a typical example of something people want when they actually need something else. Yeah, I think that they just need tools to make it easier to work with the database as a database, and not to kind of hide the fact that you're using a database by a complicated class structure that makes the whole thing really brittle. Because you kind of need different ways to look at the same information. And if you just define all your entire table structure based on your class hierarchy, you're limiting the usefulness of everything. You're going to end up inventing stuff that you don't need probably to get the data out in the way that you need it. That's just me riffing on that. I could be wrong, but I think it's very limited. The value of a relational database is that you have denormalized data across different tables, and you can construct queries to put together the information you need, and only the information you need, and aggregate it correctly. But if you don't have direct access to that information, or if it's all been structured, the schema has been created based on a class structure and not just based on like an actually crafted schema that works for the data model of the application, then it's not, you're basically losing a lot of the benefit of using an ORM to start with. You might as well just use like MongoDB or something. Use something like SQL C or MyBatis or something. I don't know what MyBatis is, but I believe you, Peter. So you can make your own session creation logic. Great. All right. Sebastian said, this manual is so annoying to follow. I mean, I'm happy there is a manual. It's great when there's a manual. There's a lot of information in this manual. It probably took a lot of time to write this manual. It's just not so easy to follow. So this is another place where people could go help in the community and make something better by helping to make the structure of the manual a bit easier to follow, or at least like having a top-line tutorial that takes you through the core functionality that you need to get something working, and doesn't take any side paths to distract you from accomplishing the goal. There are plenty of good examples out there of projects that have a good, what do they call it, golden path scenario. Maybe that's a bad term. Would be great if they gave a working example like this. Let's see, what does Invas say? Codebase.show/project/real world. Dave says a tutorial that focuses on core path and best practices would be good. Yeah, definitely agree. The mother of all demo apps. See how the exact application is built using different libraries and frameworks. What is this? Oh, you mean like give a working example of an application on this site for an Artanis app. Yeah. That's not a bad idea, actually. There's no scheme here. Somebody should put scheme here. Cookies. You can use cookies mode to find a URL rule handler. These are all like keywords you can stuff into a route definition, it seems. So you can have session, you can have cookies. Mode can be names to create cookie objects with specified names, custom names, maker, blah, 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 blah. Specify a more complicated customized cookie handler. All right. Nagatani says, maybe no one has created a real-world scheme app yet. I've started a few that I haven't finished. But I guess, you know, how real-world are we talking here? Are we talking like, you know, Series C funded startup? Or are we talking just like someone made a website? See you, Big Edie. Yes, I'm going to create a startup that gets to Series C, just so I can say this is a real-world scheme application, just to show the world how it looks to write a scheme application. That'll never happen. Why? Because I'm not motivated enough. Okay. Fine. Okay, cool. It has its own authentication handler as well. SQL screen effect and check username and password. I mean, this is all well and good, right? Like, it's fine to have all this stuff in here. I kind of feel like this should be middlewares. This should not be little keywords that you stuff into your route paths. This should be middlewares. I'm guessing that the whole plugin idea, let's look for plugins. Plugins are a concept, but they're not mentioned at all in the manual, because we saw the folder, right? What do we see? Config. Plugins.sem. Uncomment the following lines that enable plugins. Make sure you import the plugin modules. So I'm guessing that would be the concept of a middleware, which you kind of need for the stuff that they're kind of suggesting that you should do, like authentication, cookie management, etc., session management. Nicolau says, how can we compare and contrast this with Haunt? Is there overlap, or are they fully mutually exclusive? Yeah, like Dave says, they're for different things. A little bit of overlap, maybe just the HTML templating stuff. Yeah, Haunt's for static websites. But Haunt, yeah, Haunt's for static websites. That's what I would say. And Artanis is not. It's for dynamic websites. So that's the key delimiting factor. Could you make it into a middleware by chaining them or something? Maybe. But it seems like what's the right word I'm looking for? The route definition pattern seems to be the core pattern for defining how a request is handled under a particular URL path, which I guess it kind of makes sense in a way. But I think it still needs a concept of middlewares. Dave says, I'm only half paying attention. I missed what templates look like in Artanis. They have a text file that has kind of like handlebar template-like things. And they also have SXML you can use. Peter says, Haunt is for 1-tier web apps. Artanis is for 3-tier apps. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. 3-tier meaning client, server, and database, right? Haunt being 1-tier means basically just client. You're loading static web pages. They don't have a backend, like an actual backend that you make post requests to. Of course, you could do both. I mean, you could have a statically generated website that has Datastar hooked into it, and then have dynamic parts. But I think it's going a little bit overkill to put Haunt in for that. But I did try that, didn't I? For the new System Prepper site, which is still in development. Dave says, Haunt is not for web apps at all. Yeah, definitely not a web app solution. Peter says, depends on your definition of web app. With JS, it becomes blurry. That's for sure. I mean, you know, JavaScript is also a static file until you load it, and then becomes a living thing, and it could change your DOM. And make your page look different at runtime. So it's not really a static page anymore. All right. You're only delivering client-side assets. That's right. You can talk to some other web app. Yes. I still think, look, something like Artanis is pretty useful, I think, for the old way of doing web applications, where you would have this sort of scaffolded controller-based approach. I mean, I guess if I were to do something like what I was doing for the emacsPackages.com site and the new System Crafters website with Datastar, you kind of end up a little bit with a MVC style approach, because you still do have route handlers for certain resource types or model types, let's say, in your application. Those handlers are requesting data from the database, you know, to form the pages that you return back to the client, especially whenever you're using Datastar for like doing dynamic requests or creations of objects and stuff. You're basically returning HTML fragments back. So it's still kind of like MVC in a way. So you need a lot of the same stuff. But maybe a different approach could be taken to simplify things. I was kind of like trying to get there in what I was doing. Maybe take a more functional programming approach. But yeah, I don't know. Didn't really finish it. And we had to stop doing the Crafter Hour streams because I got a job. I would not have time to do that now. Peter says, I make my web apps that way currently. Static site with services backend. Yeah, I prefer that. Like, I like being able to publish a statically generated set of pages that have dynamic components in them. That way, those can be loaded from a CDN, and you don't have to serve those from your backend. Peter says, a simple static route handler and a minimal app server is easier than using a static site generator. And Nicolas says, if Haunt specializes in template management, it doesn't seem too crazy to do Haunt plus Datastar plus microservices. Yeah. The encoding of HTTP endpoints as strings really bothers me in Artanis. Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned before wanting to have like a match style syntax for URL routes. I started working on something like that. Match is kind of like the perfect thing for this. If you have a match-like syntax for URL patterns, then you get the binding of the variables for free. Once the URL path has been matched, the binding is already in effect, and then you can use the value immediately. Yeah, that route path syntax is definitely inherited from other frameworks like that. I'm sure that all of them basically do it. They have like a kind of a simple syntax for defining a variable for part of the path that you can request out of the request object. You can index out of the request object. Dave says, Geeks does URL matching with match in Geeks Publish. That's cool. Sleepy says, what window manager are you using? I'm using Windows XP. Just kidding. I'm using Sway. Dave says, this is my general problem with Artanis. I kind of forgot what makes Lisp good. I think that the other way to look at it is they wanted to provide something that seems familiar to people who are coming from other languages, but I don't really know what is that valuable? Is this going to be the thing that gets people to use Scheme? Or would a really Scheme native web framework that shows what value Scheme itself brings be the thing that gets people to use Scheme for web development? Because there are fundamental features of Lisps, like macros, etc., that would make writing a website in Scheme more interesting and convenient in certain ways. And it's not really being demonstrated here, especially whenever you can't even do REPL-based development for the normal approach of developing an application. Since I can't use a REPL with the scaffolded version of an application, I'm basically sent back to using the normal paradigm of developing a web application, which is to generate some scaffolded part of the site and then restart the server or let it pick up the new file and then go reload the page, which is okay. But, if you're in Scheme, you kind of want to use a REPL, I think. And the templating is string-based templating that is ERB-like. Yeah, it did look like that. Nakatani says, if I'm coming from other languages, I will just use the other language. If you want to use Ruby on Rails, you should just use Ruby on Rails because that thing's been around forever and it's pretty mature by this point. Same thing for Django. Though I hear people complain about Django. A friend of mine uses Django quite often in his job, and I'm not hearing good things. In fact, I haven't heard from him in a while, so maybe he's just pulled all his hair out using Django. Nicolas says, with a cleanup manual, that value prop could shine through more. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that as much as nobody likes to talk about marketing, developer marketing is kind of important. And marketing doesn't have to mean flashy web page. It also means, can you construct a way to describe the value of something, of a developer tool, so that someone reads it and immediately understands that they need to use it because it solves their problem. Can't really do that if the person can't really even understand how to use the thing that you're trying to tell them to use, or if they can't get started using it easily. So Fade says Django has opinions, so as long as you don't, it works perfectly. There are a number of inappropriate jokes I can make. Well, not that kind of inappropriate, okay? Let's keep our heads out of the gutter. That means templating is trivially vulnerable to injection attacks. Quasi-quote-based templating solves this. Yeah. Oh boy. Nakatani says, someone should make a less opinionated Django called Django Unchained. I think they call that Flask. Edge Crusher says, at least Django isn't web to Pi. I had to suffer through that back in uni. Yeah, there was a lot of really bad Python-based web frameworks way back. Yes, there are also SXML templates. Yes, there would have to be. And Peter says, Django and Rails work really well as long as you embrace their way of doing things. Yeah, that's for sure. That's the idea, though. Is like you're buying into a framework because you know that you don't want to have to write all that stuff yourself. So you want to let them do it. I think that's kind of part of the progression of a programmer is, if you're really excited about programming, at first you're like, wow, this is great. I can make a web application really fast by using something like Ruby on Rails. And then as you become more sophisticated in your programming knowledge, you're like, I don't want to use all that crap. I want to do it my own way and write everything myself. And you go through that whole phase for a number of years until you get really tired of rewriting the same stuff over and over again. And then you're like, maybe I should just use that Ruby on Rails thing or whatever other framework in a mainstream language so that I don't have to write all that stuff myself and I can just get my job done and maybe like have more time to go do fly fishing or something, which is not something that I do, by the way. So I don't know. I think that's sort of the progression. You start off with the easy thing and then you go make your life difficult for a number of years until you realize maybe I should have just done the easy thing to begin with and stuck with that. Let someone else do the thinking for me so I can, get my job done on time. I don't know. That's my opinion. What's yours? So I guess the conclusion here, Judy says, you're not beating the allegations when every time you have to bring up something non-programming, you're talking about phishing. I think my brain has been programmed through all the memes that phishing is the first thing that comes to mind. Nakatani says the end of the programmer arc is vibe coding Django apps. I really hope that's not the case, but it could be. Oh my God, that even rhymes. I'm not going to say that. Okay, it almost rhymes. It rhymes enough. That's not going to be on my tombstone, all right? What else? Yeah, I was getting to a point there. I think we're still just not there yet in terms of having a standardized web application framework for Scheme. Web application framework for Scheme. Why not? Well, probably because not that many people are trying or clamoring to write web applications in Scheme. I've tried a few times just because I kind of like the challenge to try to do it, but not many people have done it. And that's kind of the limiting factor here. Dave says, is that why there wasn't a stream last week? Too busy fishing? No, I was too tired from working at my job. But now that's slowing down a little bit, thankfully. So maybe I'll be able to think about things outside of JavaScript land for a little while. My absence was a bit fishy, yes. I was tired, man. I'm still tired right now, but at least some things got done this week. The job of fishing. It is, sort of. Hey, Minas Mazer. Minas Mazer says, I adore the Phoenix framework, Elixir on Beam VM, WebSocket and server-side rendering, Node JavaScript. That's interesting. It sounds kind of like what I like about Datastar. Basically having HTML that is annotated in a way that you don't have to write JavaScript. It just sort of calls into a backend and gets HTML fragments that are returned. Dave says, I think that people who are drawn to Scheme are not going to want a Rails-like thing, so the community kind of self-selects for not having a web framework in a way. I agree with that. That's why I think a more lightweight thing could be useful. Like if there were a well-factored set of libraries that could provide kind of like a pipeline-based web framework with interchangeable middleware libraries and a really simple way to do SXML-based web page templating, which it already kind of exists. But one thing I did find is that the built-in XML library in Guile has issues sometimes with things you might want to do with templating web pages. So I've ended up using some of the code from Haunt, I think, or even the HTML Prag library. There's a couple places where I've ended up using code just because the built-in SXML library doesn't meet the mark. But anyway, what I was trying to say is I think that a more composable set of libraries that gives you just sort of the bits and pieces that you want in a functional programming style would be better for the Scheme community. Peter says, didn't Clojure go that way with Ring at all? Yeah, definitely. Ring is probably a good example of how you could implement something like that for Scheme. Because Ring is effectively just a chain of functions in the true middleware style, where you have a function that receives the request and can modify the request can modify the response, and then you give it also like the next function that it should call whenever it's finished messing with it. So that's how you basically chain together a pipeline. Nakatani says, I really enjoyed ClojureKit and Reagent and ClojureScript. Reagent was pretty cool. I also liked, what's it called? There's another one for Clojure that's a bit Reframe, a bit more functional programming. Need Scheme script, something like that. I mean, Hoot is basically Scheme script in a way, but you have the heaviness of compiling to WebAssembly in the middle. Once we could do full REPL-based development of Hoot apps, like live develop Hoot apps, I think it would make things a lot easier for doing that kind of thing. But still, we need to have a world where WebAssembly is kind of expected in the majority of browsers, and it is there, but I think there's still issues. There's like bugs in WebAssembly implementations for the things that Hoot needs. I see Dave talking about that sometimes on Fediverse, that there are like bugs being fixed. Dave says you'll need a compiler either way, JS or WASM. That's true. Elephant says, getting things done versus doing it yourself. I've really been falling in love with Hi recently, so I can get things done without giving up language paradigms I love. Yeah, Hi, I don't know, man. I tried using that, and I wasn't really, like, crazy about it, let's say. A REPL and Hoot is on the to-do list, for sure. I mean, like, it's needed. Nakatani says, I'm not really sure how ClojureScript compiles down to JS, but it works well with a REPL. ClojureScript is wrapping something called Google Clojure, which is very confusing. Google Clojure. Does this still exist? The Clojure compiler compiles JavaScript into compact, high-performance code. Yeah, so I think it's using this under the covers or something like that to compile to JavaScript. Yeah, Judy says Google Clojure compiler. It's unambiguously rough, Elephant says about Hi. Yeah, Hi, We did a stream once where I was messing with high, and I felt like I was running into issues that were hard to understand what caused them. Judy says there are multiple things. CLJS, Shadow CLJS. Yeah, I remember whenever Shadow CLJS came around, it was a lot easier to work on web-based closure apps or ClojureScript apps. There was Figwheel before, and Figwheel was fine, but Shadow CLJS seemed better, I think. That was a while back, though. Like, I think that was 2015, 2016 I was messing with that. Back in the olden times. Oh, you did it to write VS Code extensions? Wow. Nakatoni says, I think my REPL was Shadow CLJS. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's part of the tools chain. You have the REPL where you can evaluate your views to have it dynamically update in the browser, which is sort of like what Figwheel did too. Okay, so look, I don't want to leave on a bad note. Like, I know that I kind of had some criticism, a little bit of what's going on here, what we see with Artanis. Artanis is fine. Like, I mean, I think that the stuff that's available there is probably useful for people. I just think it's hard for me personally. Well, I've got people watching over my shoulder and not really having time to like digest a whole manual. It's hard for me to understand how to use it. That's a problem that could probably be solved through fixes to the documentation. Judy says, it's fine. I ended up using in Pure.js instead. Less moving parts, less maintenance. Yeah, Pure.js makes things a lot easier, I think. Whenever you just want to get some code written that runs in the browser. Or in a browser-style application. Yes, exactly, Nagatani. Different strokes for different folks. Artanis is for someone for sure. At least the person that made it. Well, I would hope that it would at least be for some other people who made it, because it'd be a lot of work to try to produce a whole library for other people to use and not be used. But this is Scheme after all, which is a niche of a niche of a niche. So your potential pool of users is quite small. Judy says, good thing I only had to write it. I prefer my editors to have a browser, not to be written in one. Yeah, I know, right? Okay. So yes, Artanis, you should check it out if you're looking for something like Django or Ruby on Rails for Scheme. Let me know in the comments if you try it, and if you have better luck than I did. Of course, I wasn't really trying very hard. Obviously, I wasn't trying very hard, and I was complaining half the time. So, you know, we didn't really get a whole lot done. We didn't even see the stuff working. But I think we learned some things. We saw, like, kind of what it had to offer just by looking through the documentation and scratching our heads a little bit. Yeah. But for future streams, I definitely want to look more into programming things, because I like writing code, and I've been writing a lot of code lately, but I would also like to write some non-JavaScript code. So if people have ideas for things to check out or projects to work on that we could do in a stream that'd be kind of fun, that'd be cool. Don't say that, Auntie, because we're going to end up with a stream issue at the very end, probably. We didn't have any crazy stream issue yet. Not this time, thank God. Dave says, AFK time, good stream, thanks. Glad you weren't fishing this week. Yeah, me too. Thanks, man, I appreciate it. I'd rather be here, but sometimes, you know, like, life has to take priority, so you don't hear me rambling the whole time. I mean, I was rambling today, but it would have been way worse last week. It would have been real bad. And I'm kind of like, I think I'm getting caught with COVID right now. I can feel it. So I managed to get through the stream, being able to string together coherent thoughts to some degree. So that's a success in my book. Nicolas says, this is the best place to hear and chat about the schemey design ethos, which I quite like. Yeah, I don't know. I like Scheme. I think it's fun. It's a great language. Good rambling. Have a nice weekend. You too. All right, folks. Thank you very much for your time and attention, as always. Fikri says, can't say no to fishing. Yeah, I guess I can say no to fishing, but maybe people don't. And Artanis is not new. Thank you all for your time and attention. I hope you all have a great weekend. And we'll be back here next week. Sorry. But give me your thoughts on what we should be talking about, because I'm a little bit tuned out. And if people have things they want to talk about in the streams, I'd be happy to hear from you, either in the IRC or on the forum or in the comments of this video. I will see them. And as always, thanks a lot, and happy hacking. See you next time.